No two people have the same fingerprints, so latent prints left behind at a crime scene provide investigators with valuable leads into solving crime. To ensure the integrity of evidence brought to the latent print section of the Division of Forensic Sciences, there are guidelines that need to be followed. Latent prints on non-porous substrates are very fragile and can easily be wiped off by careless handling. It is important to remember that the wearing of gloves usually prevents you from transferring your own prints to the evidence, but it does not prevent you from wiping existing latent prints off the evidence or damaging them to an extent that renders them of no value. It is also true that your own ridge characteristics can be duplicated on evidence while wearing tight-fitting surgical gloves through contaminants picked up on the outside of gloves. To prevent this, wear cotton gloves with latex or surgical gloves as an outer layer of protection. It is good practice to package all evidence items separately. It is known that when two non-porous or semi-porous substrates are in tight contact and pressure or heat is applied, that latent prints can be transferred from one to the other. This will have the effect that an impression is developed on the wrong item, and it will also be a mirror image of the original. For example, a plastic bag folded over itself and heat or pressure applied may transfer the image. Evidence rubbing against each other in the same packaging can destroy existing latent prints or render them to be of no value. Excessive rubbing of packaging material on the evidence through normal handling may damage or destroy latent print evidence. Articles containing latent prints need to be secured with string or wire to a rigid surface to prevent shifting, wiping against the packaging material, and contact with other items. Items that have been processed prior to submission to the crime lab also need to be packaged the same way as any other evidence to prevent breakage or possible smudging. It is not necessary to mark the developed latent prints on the item, since a complete analysis of the evidence will be done again in the lab. It has happened that other less visible latent impressions have been damaged through careless marking of developed prints. If an item that has been previously processed cannot be physically brought to the lab, there are several options for preserving the latent prints for later submission. The preferred method of preservation is using digital photography, which will be discussed in detail a little later. A second option is to develop latent prints using fingerprint powder. While there are many different types of powder and many different lifting tools available, the materials preferred by the latent print section are black powder, either regular or magnetic, with latent lift tape and white lift cards. These tools are easy to use with non-porous items of evidence, even when the latent print is on a dark background. The black latent prints on a white background are ideal for comparisons. The latent lift cards can be purchased with printed space on the back for all information necessary for the lift. When submitting developed latent lifts, ensure that all relevant information regarding the item the latent print was developed on is included on the lift cards. Place them in envelopes, then mark and seal. Label the package as Latent Lifts for Fingerprint Evaluation. If blood-stained evidence is involved, it must include a biohazard label. Blood-stained evidence needs to be air-dried before packaging in order to prevent deleterious change due to bacterial growth. Porous substrates like paper specimens with latent prints can be shipped in the same container, but it needs to be separated with manila envelopes, boxes, plastic folders, or stiff cardboard. All wet or damp objects must be air-dried before packaging, except for metal objects, for example firearms recovered in water. These items need to be transported to the laboratory in the water to prevent oxidation. When evidence is submitted for latent print processing or evaluation, a brief summary of the incident and relevance of the items or lifts submitted is required. In cases where evidence has been previously processed, please note which types of powder or chemicals were used. In all cases where evidence is submitted for latent print examination and a suspect is known, please include an inked set of rolled fingerprints of the suspect for comparison purposes. If access to inked fingerprints of the suspect is not possible, then the name and state ID number need to be noted on the submission form. In all cases where latent fingerprints are submitted and the victim is a person or persons, an inked copy of their fully rolled fingerprints needs to be submitted also for elimination purposes. Unknown impressions will be searched on the APHIS database whenever the impressions are of APHIS quality, but will only be registered against the unknown database after eliminations are done with victims or witnesses. Submitting the elimination prints with the original evidence will significantly improve the turnaround time for casework in the lab. Digital images of friction ridge impressions captured at crime scenes or on processed evidence need to be submitted on CD or DVD. When the impressions are photographed, it is essential to include a scale in the visible image area in order to facilitate image calibration. It is essential to calibrate the images before they can be searched on APHIS. Good practice is to attach a scaled label next to the image. Photograph the whole item to show the location and position of the impression on the evidence, and then take the close-up examination quality image. Examination quality images need to be captured using a digital camera with a minimum of 4 megapixels at the best possible resolution, preferably in TIFF format. If high-resolution cameras are not available, the evidence can be submitted and the capturing can be done in the controlled environment in the lab. For the most up-to-date information or answers to any questions this presentation did not address, please call the Regional Crime Laboratory serving your area or go to the GBI Division of Forensic Sciences website.